Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We're going to wrap today up with a special selection, which is where one of you tell me exactly what it is I need to check out. Today's comes in from us from Sunsteel. Phideaux, Microdeath Softstar. That title just cracks me up because you could swap them, Microsoft Death Star. So I'm kind of curious what all of this is going to be encompassing, what kind of thematic elements we're looking at here with Microdeath Softstar. We do have almost 15 minutes music ahead of us. We have checked out Phideaux before. It's proggy stuff. Let's get into it, see what's going on. Alright, so we had a nice harmonic buildup for the first couple of minutes. Now we're getting into a little bit of a haunting loop, but there's momentum. It feels like we're going to be building from here. Ooh. I like that. So a swell into a fade out on tremolo strings. Yeah, so we have a cool 11 here, alternating groups of 5 and 6. Very journey-like. It's vast in scope. We have strings, we have brass, we have a rock band.
On the sidelines
Yeah, very cool layered vocals there. We have a violin, but it's feeling more like a fiddle right now. Bringing in a little bit of a folksy vibe. It's interesting that I don't think we've really gone anywhere. Most of these sections have felt like they've had a similar foundation. The framework might be different, but what it's built on is similar. But there's so much diversity. That's a big change. Ooh. The drums shifted there, it changed the whole feel. Ooh, very cool bassier voice. Contrasting nicely with the falsetto stuff on the other side. Oh, why did I just get a polyphonic 3 vibe? Oh, a tad bit of blues. Oh, blues rock, I should say. It was already pretty bluesy. I like that tone. What band does this remind me of? Like early mid-2000s probably. Alternative pop rock. Such a Genesis progression there too.
Fear leaves a trace of something stale, a wasteland of memory of how we failed. But all we need is time. All we need is time. But time's too damn unkind.
Was that timpani? No. It's just a bass drum of some sort. Yeah, just a general gloomy low to end the track on. All right. It's an interesting track. I think what I find most interesting about it, though, is it's prog rock, sure, and there's definitely some influence from classic prog rock in here. At the end, that chord progression on the piano, that was so Genesis. I'm sure there were some other things that I missed. It is a very dense track, and there's a lot of melody. You may notice in this analysis as we go through it, it's going to be really focused on atmosphere from a vague sense of harmonic writing, not really attributing it to any instrument, but just these were the chords and atmospheres I heard, and a lot of melody conversation. I don't know that we're going to talk too much about the drums or the bass. I keyed in on to them from time to time, but for the most part, I didn't really have a chance to really listen to what they're doing because there's so much else going on in the melodic range, on the strings, on the brass, on the vocals, on the guitar, on the organs, the keyboards, the pianos. It was just so full of lead elements that you never really get a chance due to how quickly we move between ideas to really listen to what's going on foundationally. That's something that I would have to have a second listen for. And even then, I don't know if I could keep my brain from drifting off back to the melody because there's stuff I missed there too. So it's definitely a track that will take a couple of listens to fully appreciate and get. But going back to what I was saying about prog, it is definitely a prog track. It is rock and then some. It takes rock in new directions. There's a symphonic element to it, there's folk elements to it. But what I find interesting is that after we get past the first 6 minutes or so, and we kind of get out of that folky prog rock kind of sound, the stuff that's very classic, the rest of the song kind of feels like progressive alternative rock with a dash of pop rock thrown in there. And for the life of me, I cannot think of what band they remind me of. It's the timbres of the guitars, it's the melody choices, the notes chosen to go along with the chord progressions. I have heard something that sounds like the core foundation of this track. Now, granted, what I'm thinking of does not have all of the extra stuff. There's no symphony. There's no orchestra with it. There's no, strings or extra vocals. It's like just a standard 4-piece band. But I hear them all throughout this track, and I really wish I could remember what band I'm thinking of, but it's definitely alternative rock. It's a very light alternative rock. And prog rock tends to, in my experience, either be lighter and folkier or a bit heavier, kind of dancing with the idea of grittier guitars and kind of moving into the realm of metal. I'm thinking of bands, like Frost. They're not metal by any means, but it's a lot heavier than this one. And it's really interesting to find something that's sort of in the middle there while still incorporating the progressive composition around that. I find that progressive metal tends to interest me compositionally, progressive rock tends to interest me compositionally, but I find the sound itself usually bounces off of me. And I really like the guitar tones and the vocal timbre and all of the tonal choices in this track. It's working for me in a way that progressive rock doesn't always. And I'm intrigued. I know we've checked out Formaldehyde. Is that the other one we checked out from them? I think we've heard a third one. This album art is very familiar to me. I feel like we've listened to a few off of this one. But I don't ever remember picking up on that. So I wonder if it's something that they did specifically for this track or if it was just a general part of their sound and I just missed it previously. Now, the emotions of this track are interesting. We kick it off a bit solemn. It does build up into something larger, but it starts out small. I don't necessarily want to say meek, but it isn't confident. We'll put it that way. It's not quite sorrowful, but there is a negative component to it, something that drags the emotion down. And this took up the first 2 minutes or so. We saw a couple ways of passing the melody from one instrument to another, but eventually we come into the section. The full band comes in. We got the bass, the drums, the guitar, vocals. Eventually we bring in the strings. They have this cool swell idea, the brass coming around that. We build this section up, and it's very, what was the term I used? Like a journey, I think is what I said. It's vast. To me, it speaks about a grander element, that we are just at the start of something bigger. This is kind of the last time the song did anything positive. There are elements of maybe not victory, but triumph of some sort going on in here. And I know those two words probably seem very similar, but overcoming something isn't always victorious. But there is a feeling of a type of domination going on here. The brass, especially the trumpets, just way up there, really high pitched, tons of power, bright, vibrant sound, but also note choices on top of all of these strings and the guitars and like the 3 or 4 vocal lines. And it just feels vast and powerful. And we never quite hit this again. The energy comes down, and from this point on, we tend to work with smaller sections. Just a handful of instruments. I don't think we ever get the brass back at that level, at that volume, at that pitch. And harmonically, we kind of push towards stuff that feels more gloomy. Maybe not all out sorrowful, but bittersweet, I think, at best, and straight up bluesy sorrow at its lowest. It's interesting to listen to this dance in a way that it feels like the song's trying to be better or trying to overcome something, that there's a weight that pulls it down, and the best it can do is carry that weight with a smile. We have a full on blues rock guitar solo, very sorrowful to start with, and then we get into some gritty use of distortion in order to really push that blues rock sound. And from there, the song, there's only like 2 minutes left, really begins to take a dip into a mournful piano solo that wraps the song up on a feeling of maybe not defeat, but it's certainly not a good feeling. I'm kind of curious what the lyrics end up being for this, given that I thought we were going for something a bit more epic and grand at the beginning, and I we didn't get anything like that as the song continues on. And that's sort of my emotional take on this. There is more nuance to that, of course. There is more than just the big high and then a downward slope and then a sorrowful ending. There's a lot of micro ideas in there. But once again, there's so many small ideas. I'm not going to be able to pick up on all of them, much less remember all of them. And if I did, one, I would have needed to take notes, and two, we would be here for a few hours just dissecting all of the micro shifts in this track. And speaking of micro shifts, there is a very cool way of composing music here. I had mentioned that the opening of the track, the intro, took like 2 minutes to really get into the song. We had a really lengthy single instrument intro before the band kicks in. From here, we had the next 4 minutes or so of this rising escalation. What I really liked about this section was that despite the fact that we stayed within it for so long, it never really got boring. It never felt stagnant. I had mentioned that the foundation was pretty much the same. The chordal movements, the general emotional feel, nothing's really changing there. But that the song doesn't feel like it's slowing down or stopping or dragging at all, that there's constant movement. A new instrument will come in. This instrument will pass its idea to another instrument. So we'll get that same lick from a different tone. There'll be one vocalist and then two vocalists and then three vocalists. And then one of the vocalists is doing counterpoint to the other two vocalists. And then while this is happening, there's a trumpet melody going along everything else too. It is incredibly exploratory in what it's doing. Constantly seeking out ways to reinvent itself and to deliver the emotion and atmosphere in a slightly new way, slightly fresh take on it. There's a lot of use of, as far as I can tell, baton passing, of giving one idea to another, counterpoint, harmony, multi-layered ideas. There's probably even some theme and variation in here too, as I did pick up on the guitar starting a lick that I vaguely remembered from earlier in the song. It might have been from another instrument, might have been from the intro. I don't remember. And it might not have been note for note either, which is why I throw in the fact that it might be variation. So we do have callbacks going on. We have ideas that are being started just a hair bit early on an instrument and sort of introducing a portion of that riff or that lick prior to it becoming a core part of the song. Maybe in the last bar or the final bar of the previous phrase, sort of introducing a little bit of the sound before getting into the core riff itself. There's a lot of this really thoughtful writing in order to connect everything, given just how many different layers there are, to help make it feel a bit more cohesive. This is present throughout the rest of the song as well, but you just don't quite see it on the same level of display and expertise, simply because no other section of this track has this many layers in play. And so I like this. It's definitely something that you can feel. Oh, we haven't really shifted vibes in a while. Is this still the verse? If this even is a verse? You kind of question what's going on here simply because you look, oh, dude, we're 6 minutes into the song and we're still doing this. But there's been so much movement that it's not that it's still going on. It's still developing. It's still growing. I'm a big fan of writing like that. If you're going to stick with an idea, make it interesting. I totally get atmosphere writing. I do. It's just, I find this to be more engaging personally. Not that it makes it objectively better. I really like the vocal work in here. And y'all knew I was going to bring it up. Pretty sure it's next week. Yeah, next week. We're going to have vocal counterpoint, which is an entire week devoted to two or more vocalists singing two totally different lines, maybe even different words, different lyrics, just multiple vocalists who aren't harmonizing with each other. This is great because this is a good setup for that. There's so many sections in here where we have a lot of vocal work, sometimes stacked as harmonies. 2, 3, even 4 vocalists at sometimes singing the same words in the same rhythm, just choosing different notes. But there's also a couple of places in here where we get multiple vocalists doing two totally different ideas. And one of them was cool because it sounded like they were singing the same words, but with totally different melodies. And kind of interweaving in between each other's lines, and it just sounded really cool. I love that. There's a lot of vocal diversity in here too. There are certainly multiple vocalists, but I also think that the main vocalist also does really low tones, goes for falsetto as well. There's a lot of diversity to the way that he creates harmonizing lines with his main vocal style. And so we do get a little bit of one vocalist and a lot of backing tracks, but we also get a little bit of multiple vocalists all singing together. And it just creates a richness to the vocal writing on this, but also the way the vocals sound. There's just a lot of textures and timbres coming out of the vocals. And I think this is really important because it gives the vocals a point of interest. There's not really a lot of vocals on this track. For a 15-minute song, what did we have singing for a total like 4 or 5 minutes of it? I'd be very surprised if I get to the lyrics and it's more than 4 stanzas, maybe. But it's effective. I'm going to remember the vocals on this track, not because of any singular thing about them, not because there was some amazing runs or a wild display of skill as a singer, but simply because the composition and the sonic representation of the vocal lines was memorable. There's a lot of really cool ideas going on in here, and I'm a sucker for multiple vocalists, so yeah, that's always going to grab me too. Now, the last thing I want to hit before we go to the lyrics is simply the vibes of this track. We already went over emotion, but this song is weirdly connected for being what it is, which is solo piano, progressive rock with an orchestra, uh, folk at times, indie folk maybe even, alternative rock. And again, we wrap it up with a piano solo in a totally different mood or atmosphere than the intro. There are certainly times when we make switches in the song, and I just can't fathom how we got to where we are now, but it works. Now, granted, there are some harsh transitions, but I think those were mostly for effect. Too, given how often we smoothly moved between ideas, for a section to just play this one beat of silence and then move into something tonally different is a conscious choice. It was done for a reason, and the drastic shift was further emphasized by the immediacy of the change. But it's still kind of wild just how cohesive this ends up being, despite covering such a wide gamut of styles and genres and sounds and instrument tones. It's rather impressive. And that's about it. Not a lot to go into there, no big reason for it. I just kind of flabbergasted about how this works. Let's dive into some lyrics. So, this song appears to be about the rich and powerful bringing about maybe not the doom of humanity, but certainly not a good time for everyone else. It says, "The bringer of the future casts a shadow. Watch it grow. He extends a single finger because there's only one way to go. And the watchers on the sidelines, they're polite to a T. Like contestants on TV, they are you. They are me. So come around, all you faithful. Watch him gather up the gold. When he's got the lot, he lingers just to savor what he sold. And the mesmerized are silent, too stunned to believe what their eyes have finally received, that this is not a bad dream." So basically, when people begin to consume and consolidate power and wealth, everyone else just sits on the sidelines, it says. Just polite. Let them do what they're going to do. Who are we to tell them they can't do this? But eventually, we'll see that once they own everything, life isn't great. He asks them, "Was it enough for you? Did it please you as you let the poison through? Was it enough? There's no perfume that lets the stench come through." So I believe we're talking about the stench of greed here, greed being a poison, and asking this person, was it worth it? Was it worth ingesting this poison, this greed? Do you finally have enough? Now, of course, the answer is always no. Goes on to call everyone else simply lemmings, poised to take a leap. He says, though, that this could have all been avoided whatever bad times are upon us now, that we sowed that, and now we reap that. He says, once upon a time, though, there was writing on the wall, and we all ignored, until the time when there was war and feast of famine at our door. Once upon a time, there was a line that we had drawn we wouldn't cross, because it was wrong, but lines are bendable and seldom very long. So this idea that it's the boiling of the frogs, the metaphor there, that as long as you slowly turn up the heat, the frogs won't realize they're boiling until it's too late. And that's kind of the concept he's looking at here. We could have said, and maybe people even did say, that this is too far for this person. Well, then we crossed that line. Instead of taking action, we said, okay, well, this is just the new normal. This is now too far. Well, then we crossed that line. And as he says, lines are often bendable and seldom very long. Basically saying that all we did was allow them to continue to have their power grab, and the times when we could have stopped them, we chose not to. He wraps up the song saying that fear leaves a trace of something stale, a wasteland of memories of how we failed. And all we need is time. Yes, all we need is time, but time's too damned unkind. We never seem to have enough time, do we? It's always something of more import, something of higher priority than what seems to be a small issue today. But the small issues pile up, and eventually we end up somewhere where, as he says, now there's just war and famine. Now people are really worried. Now nothing can be done, though. We had our chance. We kept redrawing the line. We kept pushing the goalpost. What was an unspeakable act is now one of hundreds of unspeakable acts, points of no return. And yet somehow we still mark another. So, yeah, the song starting a bit triumphant could be the way that things feel good at the beginning, even though there's danger. It'll get corrected somehow, some way. Those in power won't allow this to happen, right? That's what the government's for, to make sure that the people aren't put in bad situations because of just a handful of powerful people trying to make a power grab. But as the song goes on, it becomes heavier, gloomier, more melancholic. And as the song goes on, things get worse for the average person. Lyrically. Yeah, I say that ends up working out really well. Those are my thoughts on Microdeath Softstar, which is interesting because when I was pulling up the lyrics, I noticed that the first track on this album is Micro Soft Death Star. And I had mentioned that you can kind of mix these words and get Microsoft Death Star. But here we have Micro Soft Death Star. So that's interesting. I wonder what the musical relationship is between those two tracks. Anyways, these are my thoughts. What did you think of this track? Is there anything in here that stood out to you? Anything that you would like to add on to what I said or correct me on? Maybe you have your own opinion or thoughts about this track, your own perspective on it. Please put all of that and any other thoughts you have down into the comment section. Above that, in the description box, you'll find a link to Linktree. It takes you here. You can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell, I greatly appreciate all three of those. All right, that wraps it up for today. I'll be back tomorrow, though, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC, as usual. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.